Supervisors, please make sure you're logged in on the computers so we can note your attendance for the public hearing. Yep, he's here. He's not logged in. Supervisors Hampson and Giese, will you please make sure you're logged in so we can note your attendance, please? And Supervisor Cruz and Schrader. Supervisor Ferries, will you make sure you're logged in, please? 25. Yep. Good evening. Welcome to the La Crosse County public hearing on the proposed ordinance number 137 to create section 4.12 entitled Annual Vehicle Registration Fee of the General Code of La Crosse County, Wisconsin. I will note that for the public hearing there are 25 supervisors present. Our purpose this evening is to hear from the public on the proposed ordinance. We will start with a brief presentation from the Highway Commissioner. This is information that was shared with Executive Committee, and it will be helpful for all supervisors to hear this, and perhaps the public will find some interesting information in it as well. So after the Commissioner's brief, did I mention brief? Brief presentation on the proposed ordinance, we will hear from members of the public in the order in which you signed up. And I'm seeing some confused looks in the room. So if you are interested in speaking on this topic and you haven't already signed up, out in the hallway as you came in, there was a place to indicate your interest in addressing the board on this matter. So please make sure you're signed up if you're interested in speaking on this issue. So with that, supervisors will note the high-tech nature of this PowerPoint, I understand. So with that, Highway Commissioner Ron Chamberlain, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a brief presentation on the proposed ordinance for a vehicle registration fee. State law allows a community, or county, or a municipality to impose a fee to be added to the annual vehicle registration. The fee can only be used for transportation. Proposed fee for this ordinance is $20 a year on autos or trucks under 8,000 pounds, which would generate approximately $1.7 million per year for La Crosse County. The fee would reduce reliance upon property taxes by funding additional road projects that we're not able to undertake in the face of rising material costs. Current jurisdictions with an added registration fee: City of Beloit, City of Janesville, City of Milwaukee, St. Croix County, City of Appleton, and two recent additions are Chippewa County and Iowa County. St. Croix County uses the registration fee to offset the cost of hot mix in the maintenance budget. Chippewa County is planning on using this to take care of their winter maintenance needs, and Iowa County will be using it to fund to match funding for state and federal grants. La Crosse County, we propose using the funding to increase the amount of work being done each year, prioritizing unfunded projects within and adjacent to the urban areas. Just a little bit brief on the La Crosse County Highway Department and our responsibilities. We have 285 miles of county trunk highway to take care of, 159 miles of state trunk highway that we're under contract with the state of Wisconsin to take care of. We have 124 bridges that we're ultimately responsible to manage within the county. 69 of those are on the county trunk system with our full responsibility. In addition to those bridges, there's hundreds of small structures and anything less than a 20-foot span. County trunk highways are not intended to be urban streets within cities and villages, although we have currently 22.5 miles of county trunk highway that remain within incorporated areas. And just a side note, there's an additional 748 miles of local roads, meaning townships, village, and city streets in La Crosse County. So what is the challenge? We've had a rapid increase in cost of materials over the past 10 years. For example, seal coat oil is up 221%, hot mix is up 85%, and fuel is up 159%. As you'll see, all of those are oil related, and everybody is aware of the current oil increases in costs. General transportation aids and tax levy for a county highway system are no longer sufficient to do anything but maintenance. And when we talk about maintenance, we're talking about seal coating, crack sealing, patching, mowing, signs, marking, etc. Any improvement work done beyond maintenance is currently being paid for with either grant money or borrowing, and we're currently borrowing $2.5 to $3 million per year to do those improvements. 83% of the rehabilitation and reconditioning costs on the county highway is paid by the property tax, mostly residential property in urban areas, and payment for that is not related to use. We have a lot of needs. The 5-year capital improvement plan that's in this year's budget identifies $83.5 million in current road needs. 39.3 is in reconditioning and rehabilitation located in rural areas. $7.3 million in bridge design and construction projects. $5.9 million in resurfacing and maintenance overlays. Plus another $31.5 million in majors and enhancements within or close proximity to the urbanized areas. $24.2 million is located actually within the incorporated municipal boundaries. Unless we receive grant funding, almost none of the $31.5 million is scheduled within the next 5 years. We simply don't have the money to go around. As we look at the incorporated areas in La Crosse County and the miles of county trunk highway, along with the population, we'll note that we have 22.5 miles total, broken down as the mileage is in the chart. With the population ranging anywhere from 594 in the village of Rockland to 51,320 in the city of La Crosse. Registered vehicles, 723 in the village of Rockland, all the way up to 41,894 in the city of La Crosse. That totals out to 80,442, or 91% of the total registered vehicles in La Crosse County of 88,732 vehicles are within those incorporated municipal boundaries. So we're prioritizing urban projects. Why do we wish to do that? Or why is that our proposal? There are 88,732 vehicles in La Crosse County that would need to pay the vehicle registration fee. Most of those vehicles are registered within incorporated areas or a township area adjacent to an urban density population, over 90% of those. So we're interested in prioritizing the projects within the incorporated areas where the municipality is willing to accept jurisdiction when the project is complete. Madam Chair.
Thank you for the brief presentation. So we have a number of members of the public who wish to be heard this evening, and we are taking them in the order that they signed up. If I call on you, what I'm going to try and do is read your name and then the person who's coming behind so we can keep things moving. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. Our clerk will be keeping time, and she will show you a yellow card that you have 30 seconds left of your 3 minutes, and then a stop card just to make sure we hear from everybody this evening. And I apologize in advance for any mispronunciations of names that I might do tonight. But I know that there was a gentleman who was here before the sign-up sheets were even here, so I know he wants to be first up. So first up is Roger Sorensen. And if you would come to the microphone, please, and state your name and your address, please. Following Mr. Sorensen will be Alan Schultz. So let's make sure that microphone is on.
My name is Roger Sorensen. My address is N1271 Lusky Road, town of Shelby, Crosse County. I oppose the vehicle tax for a couple of reasons. Some of the citizens of this county have vehicles that are used for recreation, meaning sports cars, convertibles, Corvettes, or whatever. I being one of those. I drive my car, my Corvette this year, probably less than 3,000 miles, and not on all across county roads. Imposing a tax on that while you're exempting vehicles over 8,000 doesn't seem to be equitable. And therefore, I oppose this tax for being taxed as a recreation vehicle versus I already have 4 vehicles that I register and 2 drivers. So I am paying a fair registration already. And this just adds another burden to the amount. Secondly, I'm from the school that when you set up a transportation fund, the money should be earmarked and put in the transportation fund. Now, I don't know about across county, but I assume so. The state had a transportation fund and they rated it and rated it and rated it. Now they're crying they're out of money and looking for ways to increase taxes to fund those issues that should have been handled differently back at that time. This is what probably is going on in Crosse County, and I oppose adding a tax. If people want a tax on recreation, we should have all recreation included. Golf, whatever it might be, should be taxed just like having a vehicle for non-essential needs. That's, I guess, my thoughts on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Evidently, there was another person signed here earlier, not signed up, but we have on the sheet now. So, Philip Horman. Thank you, Mr. Schultz, for letting him move up into his proper place in line. So, your name and address, please.
Philip Horman, 826 Main Street, Onalaska. I too oppose it, maybe for different reasons, or maybe because of the way it was presented to the public. I'm sorry, I didn't read the bill. I'm not familiar with the bill at this point. It was presented because it was a fair way to generate revenue for the needed roads. I know we needed roads. You just go to County SS and 157, you'll see the ruts in the road. Now, we said we're going to tax everybody the same $20. I don't think that's fair, because if you go to any state, maybe the county commissioner could help out, but if you look at any state engineer, he'll tell you that most county and state roads are based on an 80,000 pound vehicle. Anything under that and under, the road can handle it. It won't deteriorate or get damaged at an accelerated rate. However, at the state level, more industries are going to the state level and increasing the weight. I know we have a couple state representatives, mine's right back there, and they want 98, 100,000, whatever it is. Well, these roads are going to be damaged, and they're going to be damaged at a larger rate or quicker rate. I know Mr. Paff is going to get upset with me, but one of the laws last year was Act 377. That was an agricultural bill, allowing farmers to increase the weight they can bring in their product into market, putting product out and everything. I understand they need it because they're time constrained. But every time they increase the weight on these bigger vehicles that allow them to operate on our roads are going to be needing to be repaired sooner. But why are you going to tax a person that owns a Buick or a pickup the same, and you're going to exempt a semi-unit or a larger truck who is doing more damage to these roads? It's got to be fair. If it's just fair, people will accept it, but they won't accept that. Thank you very much for your time. You know.
Thank you for your patience in being second instead of first. So after Mr. Schultz is Robert Cupp. No. You don't wish to speak? No. Okay, thank you. Next up then would be Doug Olson. After him, I'm just trying to make sure people know when they're up next. You bet.
I'd like to thank the county board for scheduling this meeting tonight on the 10th of November, my 30th anniversary. So could somebody please call my wife and tell her why I'm not home after the... Anyway, thank you. I have been president of Livable Neighborhoods, but I am not representing Livable Neighborhoods tonight, just so you know that. I'm speaking for myself. We're looking here at a situation where with 2 vehicles, that's at 10 cents a day. I do believe there's 2 parts to this, one of my comment. One is that we do need maintenance on roads. We absolutely need that. Funding has gone away somewhat at the state level for a variety of reasons, and it's going to become harder and harder from that standpoint. Having been in the trucking industry in the past, I know that not all damage is caused by trucks, but I do appreciate the fact that we have good roads and we need good roads. The larger issue, I think, is the fact that we as a society, and I do support this bill, and I'm going to advocate that this bill double every year for the next 5 or 7 years until we actually pay the cost of beginning to eliminate parking ramps in the city of La Crosse and other areas so that we can put that money into mass transit. Because what we're facing is a situation where we have several things happening at once. We have climate change, we all know that. It's a scientific fact. We also have problems with railroads going through the city, where we've just had a discussion or compromise, if you want to call it that, with the railroads as to hauling dangerous products, namely oil, through the city. And I think we forget the fact that the oil doesn't just go through the city. Some of it goes to a refinery and comes back to the city so we can burn it in our cars. And then we need more parking ramps, we need more air pollution. We have more air pollution, and we need more attention to that. The real cost of an automobile is way, way beyond the actual one parking space somewhere that somebody might have or think they need. It's an enormous cost, and it spins over into all kinds of things. And until we actually deal with those things, and until we actually deal with the environmental cost of what we have created, we are in deep doo-doo, and we're going to be in worse doo-doo over a period of time because we have not yet made the turn into sociological thinking in terms of the community as a whole, whether we're rural or urban or wherever we happen to live. We haven't made the change into thinking that says we really need to get on this. We really need to get on this project and begin to think in terms of different ways. We need to change the whole parameter of the way we think about things, the way we approach it. And business as usual, getting more money for, is that 30 seconds or what is it? Okay. Getting more money for seal coating is a temporary stopgap. Yes, we need to maintain what we have. I agree with that. But in reality, if we don't actually start thinking beyond the road and getting alternatives, well, I mean, we're really in a bad situation, and it's going to be worse for our children, grandchildren, and on down the line. It's only going to get worse. So that's my comment. Thanks for all the time.
Thank you very much. On to, excuse me, Doug Olson, and after Doug Olson is Eric Rathke.
Hi, my name is Doug Olson. I live at 3035 Lakeshore Drive, and I thank the opportunity to speak to you people tonight. I'm not a very eloquent speaker, but I'll make it very brief. I believe that Mr. Schrader has the right idea, and this should go on a referendum and let the people decide. I am personally opposed to this. And if we're going to have a tax, it should tax on all vehicles because we all use the roads. Not eliminate some here and some there, but all motor vehicles that use the road, we all should be paying a tax, no exemptions. So that's my very brief statement, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for being here. After Mr. Rathke is it Karen McLean? Karen McLean?
I find it interesting that
Would you please state your name and your address,
I
please?
apologize.
That's all right.
my name's Eric Rathke, 2202 Sunrise Drive here in La Crosse. I find it interesting that anytime that there's a budget shortfall somewhere, it's always increase, increase, increase. I don't ever hear anyone say, oh, maybe we should try and cut something somewhere and, fill the gaps in, say, the road budget, which I think is arguably the most, the thing that the government should do the most in local and state. Let me remind you that the state just passed a referendum saying that they can't raid the transportation fund. And I don't know if that's been going on. I assume that there's been money moved around quite a bit. And I can say this, the last time this came around, about 2 years ago, I spoke against this, and I'm here to speak against it again. It was brought up that this money can only be used for transportation, which is interesting because if you think about it, you could take money that would otherwise be allocated to transportation, move it away from transportation and say, oh, well, of course, this money that we're putting into the pot now is just for transportation, even though it could be easily, other monies could be allocated. So I guess in short, I feel like that this is a kid in the cookie jar thing where you're just going to keep on coming back to the taxpayers asking for a cookie, and eventually we're going to cave and say, okay, will you quit badgering us for more money? Thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening. After Karen McLean is William Meshik.
My name is Karen McLean. I live at 2901 Glendale Avenue. I understand the roads need to be fixed. There's no doubt about that. But asking only part of the people that use them to fix them is not correct. It goes by the vehicles that are registered and claim La Crosse County. That can be switched. People that go to school here claim La Crosse instead of the counties in the southeast part of the state that require emissions because it's easier. They don't have to do that here. La Crosse County residents can do the same thing, so what you're projecting the revenue would be could change in a heartbeat. Anybody that has a cabin up north, they could say they claim their vehicle stays there and there's nothing that's checked. So what you're basing your revenue collection on isn't necessarily going to be the way it turns out. And then it's only on part of the vehicles that use the road. Figure out a way that we can make everybody that use them pay. It's the only way to do it that's right.
Thank you. William Meshik does not want to be, sorry. Next person I have who wants to speak is Mike Richmond, followed by Kevin Hintz.
Hi, my name is Mike Richmond, 519 Plainview Road. I live in the town of Campbell. I oppose this tax. I think it's time we tighten our belts a little bit. I wasn't happy with the recent election last week. I think the government's going in a way that they're going to cut the funding, but they want the local municipalities to come back and we're going to do a referendum for this. We're going to do a tax for this. We're going to have a user fee for this. I think it's time we end this. In 4 years, if our roads are junk, maybe we look at the governor and say, look at our schools, they're crumbling. Look at our roads, they've crumbled. I really don't think it's also fair that we have dump trucks coming in from Monroe County. We have dump trucks coming in from Vernon County. We have trucks coming in from Minnesota. And we also have people that drive cars. That's not right. I think we should go with a referendum, let the people speak. I also think I have 4 vehicles. One I use for my job. My wife has a vehicle. She goes back and forth to work. I have a van that we use for trips and vacations. And Ralph, I think you've driven in a couple times. And I also have one vehicle that is registered for my son who's in Mankato, Minnesota for 7 years, do you think it's really fair that I have to pay $20 for that car to go to Minnesota when he's here maybe 4 months a year? I think it's all time we all take a hard look and find a different alternative method to save a little money. I oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you. After Mr. Hintz is Charles Clarkin.
Hi, I'm Kevin Hintz from 405 Robin Street, Rockland, Wisconsin. And I rise to oppose this, and thank you for your time. I came here on some county roads, and the drive was quite nice. Didn't really notice any problems until I got into the Bangor area in front of their fire department, but otherwise the rural roads were pretty good. And I do a lot of county road driving, and I really don't see a lot of issues that require a new tax. So I oppose a new tax because I think we need to look a little harder at where we're spending our money. Maybe we can make a few cuts or rearrange things a little bit. I know we're spending a lot of money on some new buildings maybe. We could look at something coming out of there. I also wonder if maybe we're getting the cart before the horse here when it comes to the oil prices, because I don't know if anyone's noticed, but the price of gas has been coming down. Recently I paid $2.83 a gallon, and that's because the price of a barrel of oil is dropping. So, you know, maybe these material projections are a little high. So I thank you for your time, and that's it.
Thank you. After Mr. Clarkin is Mike Tellier.
Charles Clarkin, 207 South A Street. A few of the people have spoken about cutting expenditures, and I think you wouldn't mind the recommendation that it would make things more palatable if you guys would have a less opulent lifestyle down here. I see endlessly, you guys never have a car more than a few years old. The average billionaire drives his car till it falls apart after 15, 20 years. So I would suggest you lower your standards to that of a billionaire before you start asking us for more money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clarkin. On to Mike Tellier and then Carl Wiggert.
I live at 113 16th Street North. It's interesting so far. We've had probably 10 speakers, and I think there's been about 9 opposed and 1 for this. I hope you're listening when you guys vote on this next month. The other thing I find interesting is you all voted yourselves $25 million for a new building so you can meet in, you know, was that necessary? It wasn't. You ought to be able to meet in this building or meet in a trailer or whatever. You don't need to spend $25 million on a new building to meet in and then come to us and ask us for more money. To me, that's wrong. So I oppose this. Hope you're listening.
Thank you. After Carl Wiggert is Greg Luce.
I'm Carl Wiggert, 221 South 3rd. There is no fair tax, but this one is really unfair. I mean, you're talking about a lot of the people that are on the roads are from Minnesota. You guys can't reach over there and grab their money. You know, you can only grab mine. And I think you guys are, you know, if you look around the room, I've got a spare tire. Everybody's got a spare tire. You know, we ought to have a tax on this room or even the county vehicles. And if we taxed you guys, you know, maybe you guys would start tightening your budgets and living within your means. The public is under stress and they got to live within their means. Your report didn't talk about how you guys could cut your budgets, how you could streamline, how you could be more competitive or bid it out. Walmart paves more roads in the private sector than anybody else out there, and they do it for a lot less money. Go over and talk to them, find out what they're doing right and what you guys are doing wrong. But you got to quit spending money. And, you know, your long arm of the tax can't reach everybody, and it's really unfair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wiggert. On to Greg Luce, followed by Alan Luke.
Yeah, Greg Luce, 1831 Nokomis Ave. I'm kind of new to this ordinance or whatever, but I'd like to know what sociopath authorized $30 million or $25 million for a new administrative center and then decides to raise taxes. We're taxed enough already, and I'm opposed to any new taxes or any tax increases. I don't want you sociopaths to have another $1.8 million to conduct your social engineering schemes. I mean, if you look at the budget, I don't know what the total budget is. Is it 70 million? Something like that. I mean, and most of that, isn't that like having people run around trying to investigate e-cigarettes and trying to sell vaccinations for the pharmaceutical companies? I think you could cut that in half and pave these roads with gold. But a new tax is not what we need. And yeah, if somebody suggested a referendum, I guess that's what we need to do because I know the public's against this. That's all.
Thank you. Alan Luke, then Charlie Weith, and then I only have one other speaker after that. So Alan Luke, Charlie Weith, Don Leckler. If anybody else wishes to be heard, if you would please make sure that you sign up out in the hallway with the Assistant County Clerk so we make sure to get your name. Go ahead. Sorry for the interruption, Mr. Luke.
My name's Alan Luke. I live at 912 Justin Road, Town of Shelby. I oppose this like majority of people do. For the simple reason is the majority of vehicles that are causing the bigger damage are the heavier vehicles, but you're not doing nothing about that. And I agree with Mr. Schrader, but only one condition. It should be a binding referendum. That, you know, you're discriminating, you're taking the smaller vehicles and letting the bigger vehicles get away with it that are causing most of the damage. So I, like Russell, I oppose this.
Thank you, Mr. Luke. Mr. Weith, and then Mr. Leckler. And again, if anybody else wishes to be heard, if you'd please make sure you're signed up out in the hallway. We'll get your name.
Charlie Weith, 122 17th Street South. I'm only in favor of this with some conditions, and those conditions are that it not be spent like found money. Have to spend it responsibly, use it for the purpose that it's intended for transportation. The idea that most of the money would come from the urbanized residents and used in the urbanized areas, that seems fairly equitable. If it's not used for those purposes, if it's used as found money, then that's not the way it should be used. I hear the concerns about the 8,000 pounds, and I share in that concern. I happen to have a commercial driver's license and drive a truck with a few things occasionally too. And I know that that truck causes more damage than a car. Unfortunately, as you all know, the state statute is what sets that limit, not you. If you could, I'm sure that you would include the 8,000 pound and above vehicles as well. I think it's something that needs to be revisited on a fairly regular basis. On the other hand, if you don't do this, and you can't raise the tax levy on those of us that pay property taxes, then the only alternative is unsafe roads, or start closing some roads. What do you do when that bridge goes out on County Highway B? Going to close the road completely? A lot of this has to do with the fact that we have built this huge road infrastructure over the last 50 years and then expected the local municipalities to spend the money to repair and maintain it, and the DOT has been cutting that consistently. So we've been stuck, the local municipalities have been stuck with that. If we hadn't expanded it quite so much, maybe you wouldn't have this problem. What's interesting is when you look at what it costs to build some of these roads, we spend more now to repair them than we did to build them. It costs more money to repaint the main street, or what you refer to as the Cass Street Bridge, than it costs to build it. Think about that. It's built in 1939, and it costs more to paint it than to build it. And that's where we're at now. The cost of these materials is going up. The demand for these materials is worldwide. We're in a global economy. The cement's coming from China. The steel is coming from China. It's more expensive. Yes, fuel costs are down for the time being, but we know in time that's not going to stay forever. So if you do this, do it very carefully, do it very wisely, and then please make sure you don't use it like it's found money, because it's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leckler. And then Mark Nelson is up next.
My name is Don Leckler. I live at 1719 Caroline Street on French Island. I'm a consumer of government services. And for this government, I'm a bit disappointed in some of the management decisions that have been made here. I don't think we need any new taxes. I think we need some better management. When I go searching for another vehicle, I look in my wallet, I look in my checking account, and that is the budget. Correct me if this figure is correct. We just authorized $80 million for a facelift and some structural changes at Western TC across the street. We're now talking about, is it a new administrative center? I mean, God, you see the sagging roof and the drips from the plumbing and stuff here in this room right now? Do you see any? Does anybody here see anything wrong with this building? I don't. We don't need a new courthouse. And for the people who live in the city, we got a brand new school up there. Let's see, there were 2 schools, and it would be more efficient if we had one. So instead of building part of a school next door to the one that's there, they tear down both of them. And how many buildings did they put up here? Is it 5, 7? I don't know. I never counted them all. But to me, this is organized stupidity. I want to see better management here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leckler. On to Mark Nelson. And again, just if there's anybody else who wishes to be heard on this issue, Mr. Nelson is the last name that I have. So if you wish to be heard on this issue, would you please make sure that you sign up out on the sign-up sheet out in the hallway.
Oh, that's all right. How you claim this is fair?
I'm sorry, will you just say your name and address for everybody? I know it because I have it on
Mark
the sheet.
Nelson, 1807 Avon.
Thank you.
How you say it's fair for everybody really doesn't hold weight. Now, I realize that 8,000 pound thing is something you can't do anything about. But if you take a quad axle dump truck at 73,000 pounds versus the axle weight of my 4,000 pound car, it doesn't even come close. Also, you're saying it's fair. I drive maybe 8,000 miles a year. Some people drive 15,000. How is that fair? My share of wear and tear is not nearly as much as the other guys. If I need my roof fixed on my house or my water heater goes, I can't go to my boss and say, hey, I need 20 bucks a week more. I gotta live within my budget. You know. And according to the figures in the paper, you need 39 million. This tax will generate 1.76 million, if they're correct. So in 20 years, you'll have enough to fix what you need right now. How is that going to do you any good? That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to be heard? We've read through the names of everyone who was signed up to speak. Anybody else wishing to be heard? Anyone else wishing to be heard on the proposed ordinance? Anybody else wishing to be heard? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Moved by Supervisor Jerome, seconded by Supervisor Schrader. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. So the public hearing is over. We have about 17 minutes before 6 when the public hearing on the 2015 budget will begin.